I want to thank everybody for joining today's Hangout session. Today we have Volker presenting on building blocks and creating your own reusable content. Before we really get going, we do have some poll questions we'd like to go through just to understand our audience a little bit more. So the first poll question we have is very simple. This is our third Hangout session around AutoCAD and AutoCAD LT, and all we're asking is this your first one, or have you been here before? And we'll just let these poll questions go for about 30 seconds. So right now it's about a 50-50 split between people who have been here before and a new crowd. So thanks everybody for joining. Great. We'll go on to the next question. We only have 3 here. The next one is, what do you hope to gain from this Hangout session? Okay, so far most of the crowd is responding to, I want to learn and see if there's a better way to what I currently do now, and I'm hoping to pick up some tips and tricks for defining blocks. So hopefully Volker will be addressing those 2 points at some point during his talk. The last question is, how do you work with blocks? Creating your own, you get your own libraries from your organization, the internet, or you're more of a newbie and you want to know what is a block, which is a very valid question. Okay, so about 80% of the crowd right now is responding to the first bullet there about I have created my own blocks. So I appreciate everybody responding, and at this point I will turn it over to Volker.
Hello everybody. My name is Volker, and thanks for attending. With me is Sean Niles, who will be interacting, and thank you, Royce Abel, for running the polls and for the quick introduction there. Can everybody see my screen okay? Royce or Sean, we're good?
We are good.
Yes,
All
we
right.
can see it.
Thank you. So, again, I want to welcome you for taking the time out of your day to join us in this AutoCAD Hangout session on building blocks and creating your own reusable content. And I'm seeing that quite a few people have created their own blocks, so I hope to show you some tips and tricks that may help do things a little better for those who haven't worked with blocks before other than maybe using them. Well, we're going to cover the basics of creating those blocks. All right, let me get to my next slide. There we go. So what we're going to cover here is, we'll begin just with the basics of inserting a block. I realize probably anybody who's worked with AutoCAD has inserted a block or moved them around on the screen or whatever, but there are numerous ways to do this, and there is some functionality you may not be aware of, so we'll cover that. And then we're going to go ahead and define a block. When you're defining a block, well, this is just creating the block, building it, whether it's from existing entities within a drawing or whether you draw it from scratch. We'll also show you how to modify that block, otherwise known as redefining a block. And we'll talk about 2 methods that can be used to do this. One is the explode command, which is one I won't spend much time on. It is an older method to redefine a block. It still works well. I use it all the time, but the preferred method is to use the bedit command or block editor. I'll also discuss write block or wblock command. This isn't really a block. What a write block is any drawing on your network or local hard drive, any drawing file you have. And what we can do is we can actually export entities out of our drawing be it the entire drawing, some line work, or an existing block, and we can export that to the hard drive or local drive. And we'll try to provide some tips and tricks as well. So just for the last PowerPoint before I get started, what is a block and why use them? Okay, so one thing about a block, all it is several AutoCAD entities combined into one entity. And what you actually have when you've created a block is a block definition. And this basically resides in the drawing database. You don't even see this. What you see in the drawing when you select it, when you move it around, is a block reference. And all this is an instance of that block definition. It's just a copy that you're seeing. And what this allows us to do using a block is we can easily move a group of entities as one piece, as one part, as opposed to having to select several pieces of line work. We also get a consistency of those parts or symbols that we are using in our drawing. So we can be consistent not only in our own drawing project, but in the entire organization. And one of the nicest features of blocks, other than what you're seeing there, is the reduced file size you would have in a drawing, because these instances of the block definition use up minimal amount of space compared to the block being separate entities. Okay, so lines, arcs, circles, whatever. So you do get quite a bit of file size reduction. There are other benefits as well, such as easily updating one symbol and then having it update the symbols in the rest of the drawing. So it's all pretty good stuff. And what I'll do now is I'll go ahead and go into AutoCAD. And I should probably go ahead and switch to that AutoCAD. And hopefully everybody can see that. Can you verify that, Royce or Sean?
Yes, we can see it. Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. So first thing we're going to go ahead and do is take a look at where we can find some of the tools to work with blocks. And typically, just from the home screen, we can go ahead and insert a block or even create that block. We can go into the block editor, which is the bedit command. And additionally, we can add, we're actually going to show this in future sessions, is you can add intelligence to your block by adding attributes. And we can also create what are called dynamic blocks. We're not going to cover those today, but we will in future session. Another spot for your insert commands are found on the block and block definition of the insert tab, those two panels. So here we can insert our block. In fact, if we have blocks in the drawing, I clicked where I shouldn't have. If we were to hover over this, and I'll show this later, you'll see the blocks in AutoCAD 2015. It actually shows you a preview of the blocks that already exist in your drawing. If we do not have anything like that, then clicking on this insert button would bring up the insert dialog. We can also create our blocks here, and note that this is where we can get to the right block command that I talked about in that earlier slide. So having said that, I'm going to start off again with the basics of working with a block. Now blocks, they can exist within your drawing, or they can be any drawing file on your hard drive. And when you're using the insert command, I'll go ahead and switch over to one of my existing drawings here. So we have the computer here, we've got the desk here and a chair. And going to the insert command, and you can just type I at the command line. Note that it shows me the symbols here. This is only available in AutoCAD and 2015 at this time. I am using AutoCAD LT, which of course is AutoCAD, and I can just select this chair, and it appears, the base point of that chair appears at my crosshair, and I can place it wherever I need to. Using the insert command, and I had to go to more options for that in this version of AutoCAD, it brings up this dialog, which gives us on, heads up type of environment where we can see exactly what all the prompts are that were happening down here on the command line on the previous insert. So with the insert dialog, we see all the blocks that are already within this drawing. So there's quite a few here, and we can just select those, and it gives us a little preview here. And then we can specify whether we want to pick the point on the screen. Most of the time this is a preferred method of doing it, but if you have something like a floor plan, or I should say a building floor plan that you want to insert onto a landscape parcel that's has been put together, you may want to set this to just 0, 0 if all the origin points have been set up properly. But that all depends on what drawing you're working with and who you received it from. I'm going to leave it on the insertion point, but again, I could have typed in an X, Y, and Z coordinate. The scale, I can either be prompted to specify this on the screen. For the most part, I'm just going to go ahead and leave this at 1 because my block symbology has been drawn in real-world units. So if the length of the desk here is, 3 feet or so, that's how long it's been drawn. I shouldn't have to scale this at all to match my drawing. If I need to, I can always tweak it afterwards, or if I know I need to scale it up or I am unsure, then I could always check this. And actually, let's go ahead and check that just for grins. Rotation, also I can specify it on screen, especially if I know, okay, this is the default rotation of it, but if I need it to be rotated 45 degrees or 90 degrees, then I may want to say specify on screen or type in that value here. And actually for this one, just for grins, we'll go ahead and rotate it 90.
Yeah, so this is a really important piece, especially if you're sharing files with another office or if you're working on a project on multiple different offices, that you'll want to make sure those standards are set before the project begins, that everyone's using the same system. Otherwise, you can get blocks from a company and you insert them and they may come in the completely wrong spot. So it's really important to make sure everybody's on the same page at the beginning of a project so everything falls into place where it should.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Sean. One other item here in the lower right-hand corner, or left-hand, my other right. In the lower left-hand corner here, we have the explode option. If I use this, then it is going to insert that block, but it will insert it in the basic entities that it was created from. And I'll actually do this as a second insert in a minute. Let's just kind of finish up this process. I'm sure most people are familiar with it. But we'll go ahead and notice it's been rotated 90 degrees. Note the base point or insertion point. That is where my crosshair is right now. And on the command line, it's prompting me. I can still change the base point, scale, or rotation. Actually, scale and rotate on this. I'm going to go ahead and I'll just disable my O-snaps for a minute. And now it's prompting me on the command line for the scale factor because I'd told it I wanted to enter that in at the command line. I wasn't sure about the size. Well, having seen the preview, I know it works properly, that it's the right size, and I'm just going to hit enter, and it finishes the command. And so there's my block. Now here I'm going to repeat this command twice just to show you something kind of neat here. Using, whoops, wrong one right there. Using insert, I'm going to go ahead first of all and tell it, let's go ahead and do the rotation. We'll do I could have done 0. So at this point here, same thing, just rotated different. But what I want to show you is that we have the base point, which is basically where the crosshair is on the midpoint of that line. Well, what if I want to align with this intersection here of the wall, the corner of the wall? But I want this to be sitting like this, but I want it to be flush, let's say. Well, the base point has been predefined here. What I'm going to do on the command line, it is actually telling me that we have an option for base point, scale, and rotate. Well, what this base point here does, it actually lets me let go of the object. It has not been placed yet. And now I can say, look, I'd like the new base point to be right here. And now I can align that with the end of the wall or whatever section I wanted. So that, to me, when they introduced that, which I thought was like AutoCAD 2005, was just such a sweet little feature to be able to modify that on the fly instead of being limited to this base point. One more time on this insert command, and that is just to show you the explode option. I'm going to click OK. When you use the explode option, you do not see a preview of your object that you're inserting. So when I bring it in, I'm assuming that's where the object is, where the base point is. I know that from previous inserts. I'll just go ahead and hit enter and hit enter again. But now, this is just individual line work. So just something to be aware of. And again, another thing to be aware of really is that this remains a default. So don't forget about that. You may want to uncheck it the next time you insert something. The reason we have blocks is not to explode them. We want to be able to count those blocks. We have tools for that. We want to be able to keep things consistent. Anytime you explode a block, unless it's truly necessary, you're going to ruin the data integrity and possibly your company standards.
Yeah, the group command might be a better option if you're concerned about the objects staying together all the time. The group command is another one. I don't know that Volker's going to touch on it too much today, but the group command allows you to group objects together in a more temporary basis and then move them around, do what you need to do, and then you can use the ungroup command. So if you're concerned that you don't want the objects linked together permanently, the group command is another option.
And what I would do is type in group at the command line and hit F1 for the help. It'll tell you good stuff about it. I wasn't going to cover it in this session. It's a good thing to bring up, though, because it is another way of just combining objects. All right, so let's, and thank you, Sean. That was a good one to throw out there. So let's take a look at some other ways to insert items. Okay, let's say I have a drawing here, which coincidentally I do have, which has some blocks in it. For example, this I'd really like to use this block in my current drawing, and maybe even other drawings. So what I'm going to do is go to, and I would actually normally just do a Control-3, which would open up my tool palettes. And Still tool palettes. Oh, right there, the big button. It slapped me in the face, everybody. You keep laughing. All right, actually I already did this earlier, but what I can do using the tool palette, and this is very cool, is I'm just going to go ahead and select the block Volker, and I'm going to pick and hold down. I'm going to drag that onto this tool palette. And having placed that there, I can now go back to this floor plan and I can insert it off of the palette. Now I want you to note this. In this particular drawing here, let's go over to the Home tab. Oh, actually, you'll see that selecting this chair, it's not the one I wanted. Yeah. Okay, that's all been created properly. There's actually a layer in here called furniture. That's what I was trying to get at. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and drag this chair right now, and I'm just going to drag and drop it in here. And you'll see that this chair is actually on furniture floor 2 right now. And that is because some of the properties of this particular block were brought in with the chair, and it all depends on how the block was created, and we'll talk about that. The color itself is set to by layer, so right now it is picking up the properties of our furniture layer, and it has brought in the chair layer. And it really depends on how it was created in this particular drawing right here that dictates what properties are brought into this drawing right here. And we'll talk about the by block, by layer, and by object properties that cause this stuff to happen. But this is a really nice way to be able to just quickly reuse blocks or any symbology in another drawing. So I'll just drag it in here. Notice in this one it's green because it has its own color and its own layer. It has brought into this brand new drawing the layer furniture floor 2. So that is some good stuff there. And of course we also have Design Center. And I did actually did a webinar on this a couple of weeks ago. And this allows me to also bring in blocks from, say, in any of the open drawings or any on the hard drive. I'm not going to cover this in its entirety, but if I go to, where's my office drawing in here? There it is. We go to blocks, and I'm just going to go ahead and drag and drop in this table. I should have zoomed out a little bit more. But it's that easy to bring in a block as well. Another method for bringing in a block, and this will be the last one I'll show, there are many ways, but this one here is also very cool. So if we go in here and we select this detail, okay, if I drag it on the command line, it opens up the drawing. Okay, so that's not what I want. So I'm going to close that. What I want to do is insert it into this drawing. And so in order to do that, we actually just want to drop it into the drawing area. And I realize my Explorer window is open there, but note that I'm easily able to drop it in there. So that is the insertion options. And I'm just entering through right now because on the command line it's prompting me for my rotation and scale factor after the insertion point. Anything wrong with this detail that might bug you about the insertion? How about you, Sean? Did you notice anything? Caught you off guard. I realized that.
We're talking about the rotation?
No, the insertion actually. When I inserted this, even though my crosshair was down here, the detail is way up here. It's really not what I want to see. Let's do this again. Let's just take the layout here. And even now that I've already inserted it, if I just go to the insert command, and so we'll insert, whoops, wrong one. Insert detail. Okay, we're not seeing anything here. I'm going to go ahead and pick a point. It's gone ahead and it's gone. Oh, I didn't follow through on that one. No wonder it didn't work. Let's try it again in this one. We're a little more drawing area here. So this way. All right, see where my crosshair is? See where the detail is? This makes it very hard to place it accurately. So how do we fix that? Well, you know, a lot of times we're going to get drawings from somebody outside of the company, or you're going to say, hey, I've got that drawing. I can just insert that into this drawing here, and I'll have my detail. Well, then you get something weird like this where you aren't able to place it accurately, and maybe you need to insert it a couple more times. Well, you could copy it. But what I would recommend doing is fixing this using the set base point command. Okay, so this, if you aren't aware of this, this is a good one to be aware of if you're just going to use individual drawings off of the hard drive that you want to insert, but the insertion point isn't proper. Okay, so what I'll do here is, one, I can just select this, right mouse click, and go into the block editor. Not going to explain this environment too much at this time because it is used to create dynamic blocks, but we can use it to modify regular blocks as well. And so if I just need to make changes here, I can actually redefine the look of this block. Now, the base point of a block, or the insertion point, if you were to open it up as a regular drawing, would be 0, 0. So what I want to do is I'm going to go into the move command, and I'm just going to select my detail. And when it prompts me for a base point, where do I want to insert this? What do I want to use for my insertion point? I'll just tell it right here. But I'm going to have some accuracy as to how I insert this. So I'm going to now type 0, 0 as the destination point. Then I'll zoom to extents just to save it with a preview. And I'll close the block editor and save the changes to the detail. Notice how it also jumped back over here now. So now if I type I for insert and select this block, unselect scale, leave that on. I'll click OK, and now see how much more accuracy I have here. The other way to do this, because right now this is only going to work in this particular drawing unless I export it to another, is to just go into the drawing itself. And I'm just going to drag and drop it onto the command line and open it up. Waiting. Let's see. Drag it. Oh, it must be another. Yes. All right, we'll give this a new name since it's open as read only. So if we take a look, let's draw a line. Line 0, 0. Way down there. So that base point is quite a ways off. We could move this to 0, 0, But if I go to the Insert Block Definition Set Base Point, it prompts me to enter the base point because maybe I don't want to try and move everything in the drawing, or I have some frozen layers. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell it, in this case, I'm going to put the insertion point on this side. And now, if I repeat the base point command, notice how that value has changed on the command line. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And I'm going to go ahead and this is detail 2. So I'll go back to my drawing 2. Using the insert command, the other option in the insert command is to browse. Okay, and this allows me to go to the hard drive or the network. I'll select detail 2. Click OK. And notice I have that accuracy, just like I did with the one that I modified in the block editor. So that's about enough on inserting a block. Probably spent too much time on that, but there are so many ways to do it. Any questions, Sean? Or
No, I think that was really good. It really is important if you can, when you're creating your blocks, to make sure you're picking those base points correctly, because it will save you a lot of time in the future. So if they can be set up that way so you have that pick point right where you want it to be and on a point where you think you'll most often use it when inserting, it's really something good to think about beforehand, and it'll save you a lot of time going forward.
Right, yeah, thank you. And that's the thing. And keep in mind on the insertion command or function, when you're inserting, you have that option also. I mean, if you're in too much of a hurry to change it right away, you're always going to be able to modify the base point. But just remember, anytime you redefine or modify that externally and bring it back in, or even modify it and redefine it within the current drawing, once the new definition takes hold, it's going to move any existing objects if you've changed the base point, as it did this original one. It was sitting up here, changed the insertion point to down here, so it moved from up here to down there. So, like I said, enough on the working with inserting. Let's take a look at creating a block for all those who would like to know more about that.